All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. Kelly, thank you for the kind words. I honestly have to say that the cookware fire that has kind of been become a priority in my business and other businesses like Seth's have it was really honestly stroked by Jason Jeffrey, and I know a lot of us have seen Jason's approach and seen his pitch and see how he sells it. And again, he's still top five in the company every year at selling cookware. Um, what Seth and I kind of found in the last year is Jason's script itself is a fantastic base. And during our year-end banquet, during our CSP like meeting after the day after, we I was asked to give a cookware message, and this honestly is kind of where kind of where this script kind of came into fruition. So it honestly came from a lot of time over the last year and a half of really not doing a very good demo, but just showing it a lot to our customers and kind of just failing forward a bunch of times is kind of where it came from. And I feel like that's how a lot of scripts do come to be. What I really like about what I kind of created and just kind of put together through all of the things that I've learned over the last year and a half is that this script, if you memorize it, you're going to sell so much more cookware because it lays out just the basics of when you need to say something, how you need to say it. I've said a lot of these things in a lot of different orders over the last, again, year and a half. And I found that not saying certain things at certain times hits different with a customer and resonates more when you say it. Just depends on the customer that you're in front of. So just like, and I want to say this before I get into anything today, just like a new customer script, I think I took this from Seth back 4 years ago when I first started doing like actual events on a consistent basis. I remember field training with him, and I was like, dude, with this one customer, he was like, he cut a penny within 15 seconds of doing the demo. And somehow, though, throughout that pitch, he still was able to cover everything. So he was able to cover value, he was able to cover double D edge, able to cover guarantee, and it was all kind of all over the place. And he was like, but you notice that each customer is going to be a little bit different, and I think we all know that within our business. And what's important is that you have this script down so well that if you need to show how to make an egg, within the first 30 seconds, if a customer comes up and is like, yeah, I don't ever want to buy stainless because eggs stick, you can pull up a video, show them how it works and how eggs don't stick, and they'll be like, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden, they're just completely more open to hearing everything else that you have to say. Just like how Brandon, or just how Ray Reed at Net 2 years ago, or I think it was Brandon, actually Brandon, now that I think about it, Brandon was like, yeah, I cut leather within the first like 30 to 45 seconds of a pitch, because the second a person cuts through something, now they're emotionally tied in. And now all of a sudden, everything that I say about why Cutco is what it is, the customer just has their ears open to actually listening to what I have to say, not just a bunch of pitch of like, been around since da-da-da-da-da, we have that, da-da-da-da-da. It's just like you're creating a wow moment almost right away within that conversation. So with cookware, basically the idea is that you want to get to showing them like an aha moment as fast as you can, essentially, is kind of the idea. So like this pitch, if you read it out all through it, like, and you had it down, it should take you about 8.5 minutes total. And that's with showing 3 or 4 different videos. Not all of them are long. A couple of them, that's including, by the way, the Jason Jeffrey video. And if you think about it, a lot of our pitches that we're doing with knives take about the same amount of time. So what I kind of figured out is that I wrote down a couple keys today. And I want to make this message as simple as possible, and I'm not going to make it gourmet, because the beautiful thing about cookware is that it's not gourmet. It's extremely easy to talk about when you have confidence in talking about it. First, a couple concept ideas that I want to mention before I dive into this script. So at the beginning of 2018, I remember I was talking to Jason, actually, and he was like, cool, so what other cookware pieces have you added? And I'm like, I still have the aspiring set. And he's like, how many dedicated cookware sets do you sell? And I'm like, That's probably basically what I sell, that and aspiring cookware sets. He's like, okay, cool. How many family sets do you sell? And how many like legacy sets do you sell? And at that time, I think I'd sold 2, and they were completely by accident. And Jason's like, okay, well, basically your next step, you're like right now, what you need to do is you just need to buy the rest of the dedicated cookware set. I'm like, okay. So he's like, at least you'll be able to show everyone what comes in a dedicated, but you need to put on your hit list as soon as possible to get at least everything that comes into the accomplished cookware set. And if you're able to do it faster, get everything that comes in the legacy. So fast forward, guys, a whole year after that, it was April of last year in 2019. And I had still not done any of that. I had bought a dedicated, so I had a whole dedicated set, and I noticed all the sets that I was selling were all dedicated. And I worked with Seth quite a bit, and I was like, every cookware set he seems to sell are family sets and bigger. I'm like, I don't understand what I'm missing. And then all of a sudden, I go to the Federal Summit, and Mike Dowd's giving a message on cookware, and he's like, he literally sold me while he was giving his talk. I spent $2,300 to buy the wok, the stock pot, the griddle, the 9-inch utility pan, the double boiler, the 2-quart saucepan. I bought everything that I was missing. Literally less than a month later, guys, I went to this small little car show, back to the 50s we do in Minnesota. And I was working right next to Seth, and it was kind of cool. We were able to do a double mirror booth. So everything was the same on both sides. We had a full cookware set on each side of us. And the first day, it's a 3-day home show, or 3-day car show. Most I'd ever sold at it before that was $5,000. I sold $12,000 last year at it. And the first day, I wrote up 4 orders, and all 4 of them were cookware sets. So there was 2 3-inch fry pan sets that we sell. So by the way, that's a great thing. If you don't create a little sell sheet, Josh, this would be a great thing. If you guys don't have it already, you probably do. But just a 3-inch three fry pan set with and then what we did too, so you can give yourself a drop down, is we added a turn and serve and a slotted turner, full price. So because obviously with cookware, it's very difficult to just drop the price. You can't do that obviously with cookware. So it gives you about $100 of wiggle room, which we did. But I sold 2 of those, and I sold a legacy set, and I sold a family set that day. And then less than a month later, one of the family set that I sold, she called back and she's like, oh my God, these are amazing. And she bought a stock pot and a wok over the phone, just like that. And the proof was in the pudding, right? It was like, that was it. I was like, if I wouldn't have had the wok, the stock pot, and the griddle out to show people and actually physically hand to them, I would not have sold those sets that I sold. So my first, and it's not a plea, it's not a cry, it's just, if you do not have, and by the way, now of all the times in the world, it is the easiest and least expensive way to buy the wok, the stock pot, and the griddle. I was joking with Kelly yesterday. I was like, I already have those, and I just bought the legacy completion set. I literally unboxed it today. There's the stock pot and the griddle, and the wok's over there. I bought it again, so now I've got it at home, so I'm actually going to use the pieces, so I get even more excited about showing them. So if you don't have the pieces in the bigger sets, it's just like when we have a homemaker in front of us, it's hard to sell an ultimate because people can't see it. It's such a simple thing, but just have the pieces. Because if you can hand a person a stock pot, they do the same thing. They're like, whoa, that's a big pan. Like that is a pan right there. Same thing with the wok. You're like, yeah, Mr. Jones, this is our flying saucer. You like fly it over to them and hold it, and they're like, oh my gosh. And then you open it, and they're like, holy cow, that's so deep. It's like, and I'm like, yeah, Mr. Jones, it's almost 4 inches deep. It's 13.5 inches wide. It's wild. It's awesome. Again, what I took from Kareem, and again, I'll go through this script in a little bit, is cookware is so much more of an emotional sell than we give ourselves credit for. Okay, so having and physically holding a cleaver, it makes a customer think different about, again, an ultimate set, because they're like, oh, I can actually physically feel what a cleaver feels like if I owned it. The griddle, guys, I think is the most underrated piece that we sell, because that thing, just holding it, it is so much more dense than people understand until they hold it. And if you guys haven't held a griddle, by the way, it is a piece of cookware, I tell you that much. So what I would say before we get into any of the technicalities behind cookware is that if you do not spend $459, guys, literally you need to sell a wok and a stock pot. That's literally it. A wok and a stock pot. You couldn't even sell a griddle and you already make your profit back. or excuse me, already make your money back, right? Mike, when he was telling me about in his message 2 years ago, he's like, you literally buy, and this was before the legacy completion set was a thing. He was like, if you literally sell one legacy cookware set with the CPO that you earn from that set, you've paid for the set, and the second one, you're already making money, right? So one of the things that I've done a lot in the last year specifically is invest into the booth that I have, because when you show people everything that we make, they can physically see it. They can physically visualize what it would look like if they were to have it in their own kitchen. It was cool going over to Josh's house this year, and he's got, what would we call it, Josh? It was like the extra completion legacy set or something, because he had like 5 different saucepans. He's got 4 of the different size fry pans. He's got everything almost, it seems like, twice, and he's able to fit it into one little cupboard underneath the sink, and it all fits, right? So it was cool because people are like, oh, I don't have the space for it. And I'm like, I live in a 620 square foot apartment, and I can fit this in my drawers. I can guarantee you can fit it in yours, right? So just the idea of being able to like flip over a stock pot or flip over a wok with the lid and show people, yeah, see how easy it stacks? Again, it's just proof of concept, and it's just proof of, again, this is what it would feel like to own this, right? So I would say that's, if you want to sell more cookware, get more cookware, right? So the skillet and the fry pan, they're fantastic to sell, but you're going to notice that if you guys have an aspiring cookware set, you're going to sell a ton of pieces. And we just had this in our division. One of our reps reached out to us, and they're like, do you have any tips at all on selling more like cookware sets, not pieces? And I responded back to him, and I said, what pieces do you have at the booth? And he's like, I have an aspiring set. And I'm like, honestly, it's going to lead to a lot more piece deals rather than, again, being able to see it in person. What I wanted to talk about next was just placement of cookware. As far as where you should put it, this is kind of a wild stat, but it just goes to show how important it is to have cookware in front. As discombobulated as your booth might feel, trying to fit a full legacy set up front, you can do it. Get a 2-tier rack. You don't even need that 3-tier. The 3-tier is a little bit, again, it takes a lot of space. So I would say the 2-tier is all you really technically need, because you can put a stock pot on the bottom. You can flip the double boiler over and set it on the top rack, and you can put the wok on top of that. And then your 3 fry pans, they sit on top of each other. And then you basically have to fit a skillet, a 2-quart saucepan, a 1-quart saucepan, and a utility pan. And that's it, right? And then you got your Dutch oven, your stock pot. But again, those are stackable, so you can put a 3-quart steamer unit on top of that. I should have taken a picture this weekend, but I was at a sports show up in Fargo, North Dakota, and we had 10 feet of space. We had a 10 by 10 corner, and we were able to put, and it took up probably, I would say maybe like width-wise, it probably took up maybe 4 feet of space, right? But it's out front. And one of the people I was working with, she was like, I don't know if we're not going to really sell cookware. Like, do you really sell cookware? Like when people just come up and they buy cookware, you usually use it as an upsell, right? And I'm like, no, actually, probably half of my cookware sales last year came from selling cookware first, not as an upsell. And the biggest reason behind that is because it's in front. They can see it, okay? So as far as placement goes, what she was talking about, what Kelly was talking about with the Iowa State Fair, the Minnesota State Fair, at the Iowa State Fair, it's 11 days. I only worked 9.5 of them, and I sold 7 cookware sets. 5 of them were accomplished, and 2 of them were legacy sets. And go to the Minnesota State Fair, which is a 12-day fair. More people attend it. More people walk by our booth. But how we have it situated right now, we have it behind us. And I sold 1 cookware set. And I think as a total booth, we sold 3 between 4 people in 12 days. And Seth and I are behind both of those. And we sold more cookware at the Iowa State Fair because it was in front of us, more so because, not necessarily because we were good at selling cookware or that we had our pitch down pat, which, by the way, was still a huge work in progress at that point. But it was that it was in front of us, and it made it a talking point. One of the things that I've noticed most specifically about like the federal program is that the federal program, you'd be surprised how many, and like, because it's not as busy, so I'm able to kind of like see how people react in just kind of a more casual setting. People get drawn to the pans before the knives, and you'd be surprised how many people come up and they're like, oh, and they look fantastic, of course, because they're Cutco and they're shiny and they're pretty and it's big and it's like, wow, it's a statement maker. people are impressed by them because they're like, wow, this is a beautiful set of pans. Oh my goodness, right? And you get them talking, whether they own cookware, whether they don't. And again, like Kareem talks about like what would be most important, and Brandon does this as well. Would you say that the pans are most important, the knives could use the most use, or could you say the spoons and forks in your drawer could use the most work, right? And you'd be surprised how many people, right, have pans at the top of the list. So I would say this, to pop a fear bubble that you all have, and I think I had as well before I started selling more of it, is that we tend to tell ourselves that people buy Cutco knives more often than pans, and technically speaking, they do. But I would challenge the thought process behind that, because what do we have on full display? We've got our sets of knives, bam, front and center. So people are like, oh, they sell knives. And that's great. But I would challenge you to the fact that, and a lot of people tell me, right, it's funny, especially talking to newer reps on the team, I'm like, yeah, so why don't you sell cookware? And they're like, well, they've already got pans. And I'm like, so how did you sell them knives? Didn't they already have a set of knives? And they're like, oh, right. And all of a sudden, like this whole, like, their mind gets blown. They're like, oh my God, you're totally right. People already have pans. People already have spoons and forks, guys. People already have a set of knives. It doesn't matter what they have, right? If you're confident in the pitch and you're confident in what you're talking about and how to talk about it and why to talk about certain things about the cookware, you'd be surprised how many people are open to getting cookware. And this is something that I have genuinely, especially over the last year, I've come to realize that the pans, when we say in the pitch, and you'll notice it here when we go through it, when I say it is literally the best thing that we make, people believe what I'm saying because I have so much conviction about that, right? The knives do make our lives so much easier, and I love Cutco knives. They are absolutely amazing, and they're one of my favorite products to sell. But the thing is, I get so much more satisfaction when I sell cookware, because I know that that stuff is actually going to absolutely change their life in a whole, like it's going to flip their life 180, right? Because they're used to, by the way, 90% of the people that you guys are going to talk to have what we call the all-American set of pans, which is a little bit of everything. So they've never actually truly experienced what having good pans is. Like they've never gotten the chance to really see how amazing it is to cook an egg, or how amazing it is to be able to cook broccoli or carrots in a saucepan without adding any extra salt. They've never experienced that. Just how people have never really experienced how to cut through a steak without ripping and tearing, or cutting bread without smashing it, right? What I would say before we go into the pitch is that the fear bubble that you have of believing that people don't buy pans because they already own pans is complete 100% bullshit. And it's a story that you're telling in your head right now, and it's causing you to sell less pans because you have less conviction for it, okay? So a couple of to-do steps before we get into this pitch, okay? First to do, right, is buy the legacy completion set, right? It's actually going to be more expensive if you have a dedicated to buy the rest of the pieces in the dedicated, in the accomplished set, technically speaking, than it is to buy the completion set. I would say that having a 9-inch utility pan out is also one of the most underrated things, because you can point to that when you show Jason's video and say, yeah, that's the pan he made it in. For the longest time, guys, I thought that he was making that in a 2-quart saucepan. It was in a 9-inch utility pan. I didn't realize that until about a year and a half ago. I was like, oh, that probably would be valuable to have a 9-inch utility pan out. Just be able to, see, like, it doesn't look like it's a whole lot, but look how much food that fit in there. Right? People are always wowed by that. So the first step, again, is getting more pans to your set. Okay. The second is to use it at home. Right? And I'm going to get to one more little aha moment in a second. Or to do in a second. So if you don't use the pans at home, it's very difficult to have conviction in it. So again, you guys, if you don't have any cookware, by the way, you can buy the aspiring cookware set. I think it's $335, which is just the stupidest deal ever known to pans, especially with Cutco. So get that for your booth, but then make sure you have a skillet and a fry pan and a saucepan at home so you can try them out and use them, right? Go home, make an omelet, right? When you actually see how well it works and how easily it comes out of the pan when you use them the right way, it's a game changer. So the second to-do list, or the third, to-do is once you buy it for yourself, okay? I'm going to show you guys some videos in a second of making an egg, Okay, so Josh's video of making eggs in stainless is fantastic, and I send it to every single customer that I sell cookware to. What I found though is that what I found is there's a flip for a representative when they go home, they make an egg, preheat the pan, like show people putting butter in it, spraying it, whatever you use, physically flipping over an omelet and it not sticking on the pan, and then showing a customer how it just falls right out of the pan. The conviction that you have to be able to say, yeah, that's me doing this right here. You can literally do this with one hand, by the way, guys. You could be making your omelet, video yourself. It might take you a couple tries, and that's okay. But being able to say, yeah, this is me doing this, basically just gives you credibility, right? So it's like, the customer is like, oh, okay, cool. That person actually knows what the hell he's talking about. B, it gives you much more conviction in showing that you can make an egg without it sticking. I think the biggest thing that held me back, guys, from selling cookware, rewind a year and a half ago, was I was scared, literally scared, to tell people that when you made an omelet with our pans, it wouldn't stick, because I had done it and eggs stuck. It's so simple, but it was a fear bubble that I had because I didn't feel confident enough to tell people that eggs don't stick, because I didn't do it frequently enough for myself. And what's great about this, guys, by the way, when you videotape yourself, all of a sudden you hold yourself to a higher standard of actually knowing what the fuck you're talking about. Okay, we're like, oh, preheat the pan. Right? Now I've had the luxury of being able to cook on gas and electric in the last year, so now I know how to do it on both. Right? And I've realized that I've literally timed it to know exactly how long it takes for it to preheat. Right? Now, the last thing that I'm going to say is, before we get into the script, is cookware isn't about selling cookware. It's literally about telling stories, and it's all about just telling people that this is a product that, if you have it, will change your life, right? And at the same time, cookware is an emotional sell. But what I found is I've been selling cookware now, like actually being intentional about it, for 2 years. I have yet, knock on wood, I have not had a cookware return in 2 years. And it has everything to do with the fact that this script, guys, which we're going to go through in a second, it literally just teaches people how to use the cookware while you're doing it. It's beautiful. So you don't have to go in for like a 5-minute after the pitch thing of like, okay, so here's what you need to do. You need medium and below is all you need to know. If you burn it, don't return it. It's like all of these things are built into the script now. So by the time you're done with the pitch and they've given you your credit card, they feel confident, you feel confident, and you know that you're going to have a sale that's locked and loaded and not going anywhere. Okay? So let's get into this script really quick. So if you don't have it pulled up, it's all good. I'm literally going to read it, because it's literally exactly what I say now, basically, on my appointments. Give or take a line here or there, of course, just like we all do in every single pitch that we make. But I found that this is the best way to walk a customer through the emotions of, A, just letting them know we have it in the first place. B, also just teaching them how to use it. And also C, again, giving them the best expectation of how much our stuff costs. I'm not going to go into price comparison. I'm not going to talk about how to sell them the sets or how to show different sets. This is essentially just the basics of Jason Jeffrey's cookware script. Basically, just we've added. So this is, again, I will give so much credit, not just me at all. I took the time to write it, but it has a lot to do with learning from Josh, learning from Jason and Seth and Kareem and Mike on just, again, coaching people essentially on how to use our cookware while you're pitching it. So it's kind of a twofer. You're doing both at the same time. So you don't have to feel like, I don't know if you guys have ever done a cookware demo and it took you 45 minutes and it's like the longest thing ever. So the idea is, how can we make it shorter? Josh, again, one of your biggest things is how can we get a person to say yes as soon as possible? That's essentially the idea behind this script. Okay. So the first thing that you're basically going to talk to, like you're basically just going to ask. Now, by the way, this could again be a person that owns Cutco, doesn't own Cutco. This just kind of has the assumption that this person is familiar with Cutco already. So it's simply starts something like this. So did you know that Cutco has cookware? No? Okay, cool. Well, it's actually one of Cutco's original products. A lot of people don't know we actually have it because they bought their knives from a college student who was taught how to sell 10 knives in a shears. So it's called waterless cookware. Have you ever heard of that before? No, no worries. Cool. So do you know what kind of pans you're using right now? Okay, and you're going to get a couple different reactions to this. You're going to get all clad. You're going to get people that have a few different kinds. The majority of people that you're going to talk to are going to say, well, I got a few different kinds. And I kind of joke with them. I go, gotcha. I call that the all-American set. A few of these, a few of those, right? They're like, ha, ha, ha. Cool. Now, they say they've got all clad. We actually had Matt the Cookware guy, which a lot of you guys are very familiar with, that actually came up to our booth a couple days ago. Or last week at the Home and Garden Show, and he actually told us a couple of selling points to people that already have all clad. So this is a kind of a side aspect, but if you guys want to jot these things down, all clad uses 1810 stainless. So 1810 stainless, which of course we are all very familiar with our flatware, that's what all clad uses. We use a surgical stainless steel. Now there's actually a big difference, and I didn't know this literally until last week. 1810 stainless still has porous, right? It's still porous. So he basically told us that if you were to put lye, aka some bacteria, like a liquid form of bacteria, into a all-clad pan, it would actually survive. And that's because the all-clad, because it's not non-porous, because it's 1810 stainless, even though it's very high quality, things can still seep in, as crazy as that sounds. Also, with surgical stainless, if you were to do the same thing with surgical stainless, that bacteria would literally die because it has nothing to survive on, right? Another couple selling points on all clad versus our stuff is that all clad uses rivets. We use spot welding. Now there's a couple different things. You can say, so spot welding, by the way, is actually a hell of a lot more expensive than putting rivets on a pan. I didn't know that. But the biggest reason why we do that is that it doesn't get hot when it's on the burner. So have you guys ever watched a cooking show? Do you notice how Chef Ramsay and Chef whoever always have a towel on their shoulder? If you look closely, they take the towel off to move the pans from burner to burner. I never thought about this. And they said the reason why is that when you put rivets into a pan, the handle gets hot, right? So the handle on our stuff, as you guys well know, it does not get hot, okay? So that's one big thing. Another big thing is that when you're cooking with, again, you basically, with the biggest difference with all clad and then also with our stuff is that they don't have the benefit of waterless, right? So again, like with all clad, they do not have the same benefit. Like they still have to add stuff. Things still seep into the water. They still have to add water, right? With our pans, because of the seal that forms, again, we don't have to add water, extra salts, pepper, additives, right? So if you're ever talking to a person that's like, oh, I got all clad, like I got the best and stuff, one of the biggest things, just like people that have Wusthof or Hinkles, that say, hey, you want to basically just want to say, hey, I appreciate the amount of time that you put in to researching your pots and pans because you guys bought the best stuff that is sold in stores. Like if you were to go to a store today, that is absolutely the best thing that you can buy. There's a couple things, excuse me, that you'd want to know if you were to make a switch on why you'd want to make a switch. And those are a couple of the big things that you want to know. So that's just a couple of things. And also, again, it just minimizes what Kelly was saying earlier is it just minimizes your waste in the long term too, because again, with Cutco, again, they buy it once. You never have to replace it, right? You never have to continuously buy a bunch of pots and pans, which just end up in a landfill. Again, just adding more surface area to the garbage total that this world has. With waterless, it's one set of pans that they never have to replace and they'll always have. So that's just one little thing. We found in Minnesota, they're very like health conscious and also environmental conscious as well. And that was a great thing that I got from Kelly today as well that she got from Matt last weekend. So those are just a couple of things. But let's say, again, they just have an all-American set. Okay, cool. So the next question you always want to ask is, how do you like them? Again, more people than not say, again, they get the job done, but they're nothing special. You can say, oh, cool, gotcha. Well, you'll love the Cutco pans. They're amazing. So I've got both of the different things that you're going to kind of incur. So again, you can kind of go from there. Now, next thing you're going to say is, okay, now we're known for our knives, but in my opinion, the pans are the best thing we make. If you like the knives, you'll love the pans. The knives make your life easier, but the pans allow for a total lifestyle change. What's great about this is that they're easy to use, they're easy to clean, it's built like a tank. And then as an added bonus, it literally makes your food taste better. Now, normally when people see stainless steel pans, they think they're the worst because everything will stick. However, the pans that have like the Teflon, Anilon, Kelflon, they're actually the worst. They're actually now banned in many countries because they're so unhealthy with the fumes, the coatings, and the chemicals that get into your food. The thing is, what most people think is that when your pans start to flake, that's when they need to be tossed. However, when you put a coated pan onto a heated surface, the coatings are actually evaporating into your foods at a microscopic level. Now, don't get me wrong. They're easy to use, but the negative ramifications heavily outweigh the benefits. And the thing is, I had a customer tell me once that once we have Teflon on our bodies, it's never coming out. Now, cast iron, on the other hand, which you probably have used or know someone that has it, is also great. It just doesn't have the same benefits that waterless cookware has. What I love most about Cutco is that it actually has the same benefit of a nonstick pan without any of the health risk. So you're probably wondering, well, that sounds great, but it's still stainless, so food's still going to stick. But it's actually not just stainless. Take out your handy-dandy cookware sheet, show them the 5-ply picture. So Cookware actually uses a 5-ply core in our pans. Now, you've probably heard of the pans on TV and in stores with the titanium core, the copper core pans. The waterless cookware companies have been doing something even better than this for over 80 years. Now, with Cutco, there's 3 layers of aluminum that conduct heat extremely fast, but it's surrounded by 2 layers of stainless. So it's extremely safe, sanitary, and it's easy to clean. But the real difference maker is that this isn't just in the bottom of our pan, it's actually also on the sides, even in the lids. So what's great is that you're actually cooking from the bottom, the top, and the sides all at the same time. So a lot of my customers they'll ask me, well, can I put these in the oven? And you actually can put them into the oven up to 350 degrees. But when you put the lid on, essentially you're creating an oven for your foods right on your stovetop. And the great thing is because you're cooking from all sides, you're able to prepare your foods faster, and you never need to use high heat because the pans distribute heat so quickly. So a rule of thumb, Mrs. Jones, is medium to low is all you need to know. And something I did this last couple of weeks, by the way, guys, is I actually asked them to repeat that. So what is it all that you need to know, Mrs. Jones? And they'll be like, medium to low is all you need to know. And then they'll say it. And then bam, that's in their head forever. So to give you an idea of what I actually mean when I say waterless, I'm going to put a little bit of water in this pan. Now, before I do this, I want you to pick up the lid. Notice how it just pops right off. If I were to spin it, nothing happens. Now, when I put some water in it and give it a little shake, now try lifting the lid. Notice that suction? It's pretty cool. The lid almost kind of floats when you spin it. Right? This is what we call a vapor seal. It's like a vacuum for your food. Now, by the way, guys, I never used to do this without water. Start doing that because it like creates an epiphany in a person's head of like, oh, there's a seal that forms when there's food in there. So they pick it up, nothing happens, and then they pick it up less than 5 seconds later. They're like, oh, that does get sucked on there. Okay, it's like a proof of concept. Now, random question, but have you guys ever asked yourself why you boil or steam your foods before? A lot of people look at you like you're the most crazy human being ever. Like, what? No, I've never been asked that. No worries, but can you tell me why we do that? And again, by the way, this question, by the way, is freaking awesome because people are like, I actually have no idea why I boil or steam my foods. I've done that ever since I can remember, right? So essentially you're breaking a pattern for why they think they need to boil and steam foods. Okay, so can you tell me again what happens? So can you tell me why we do it? Yeah, and I always basically say, yeah, there's really no good answer to it besides the fact that it makes our food softer and a tad more enjoyable to eat. But what do you think happens to the flavors, vitamins, and nutrients when you boil and steam your foods? Every single person at this point, they're like, oh yeah, it kind of just goes away. Yeah, it just goes into the water, right? So I kind of joke, but in all reality, because nobody ever drinks the water in their pans, it just goes down the kitchen sink. So I always say the healthiest part of the kitchen is the kitchen sink. So what's great about Cutco is that when you're making your foods, the idea is you can use less salt, pepper, water, less additives to your foods because everything cooks with its own natural juices. You're probably like most people that when you buy fruits and vegetables, you're buying them for a reason. You want the health benefits. So unlike with normal pans, where the majority of the good stuff you're trying to get from your food just goes down the drain, with the Cutco pans, you actually get to reap the benefits of those healthy foods. So you can kind of see a trend here. With waterless cookware, it's faster, it's healthier, and it just tastes better. So it's kind of hard to actually believe this stuff until you see it. So I put together a couple of videos to show my customers just how easy this is. Do you guys ever make eggs? And they'll say yes. So I say, sweet. I make an omelet almost every single morning. Okay, so the only thing that's different when you're making eggs with the Cutco pans versus what you're doing now is you preheat the pan. Do you guys cook on gas or electric? Okay, also another thing that I've added, if you want to add this in, I started doing this about a couple of months ago, is I asked them, hey, what do you do before you put pizza in the oven? And people are like, I don't know, like you preheat your oven, right? They're like, well, yeah, okay, cool. What do you do before you put your steaks on the grill? What do you do? And they're like, season it. No, they're like, you gotta start the grill. They're like, oh yeah. So that's all you're gonna do. It's the same thing. So you're applying something they already do, by the way, to something that you're gonna do with these pans. So now it's not this crazy, like, oh, I have to preheat my pan to use these knives. Oh my God, this sucks. It's okay, cool. If I preheat my oven, I preheat my stove, I gotta preheat my pan before I put eggs on it, right? So then you ask the question, do you cook on gas or electric? I ask this question so I can give them the right expectation of what to expect and how long they need to preheat the pan. So it's gonna be tricky with video, on Zoom, but I'm going to do my best to show you guys the videos that I show. If you guys don't have a Cutco cookware, whole, let's see if I can get It's a little lower. If you guys don't have like a Cutco Cookware like album, make sure that happens. I think both Josh and Brian, you guys have probably, again, like gotten your team on this. Have one because it's just easy to pull up, really, really easy, okay? So basically this is the first thing you're gonna do. So I make an omelet every morning, but basically what I do is I still do this quick, easy test every single time I do this just to make sure that the pan is hot enough, okay? So I'm gonna show you this first video, Mrs. Jones. Okay, this first video is I'm gonna show you, this is basically a pan, Mrs. Jones, and the water essentially is just gonna sizzle. So a lot of my customers think that the pan is hot enough here. It's actually not quite hot enough. So here's what you're looking for, Mrs. Jones. You're basically looking for this water to essentially do a dance. And I literally do this, guys. I'm like, Mrs. Jones, you're looking for the water to do a jig. They're like, okay, got it. I'm looking for the water to dance, okay? So then once the water's dancing, then you're gonna put your butter in there. If you use spray, doesn't matter. I just like to taste the butter. That's just me personally. Put your butter in there, right? Let that set for about 10 seconds or so. Then you're gonna put your eggs in there. Right, then your eggs are in there. And it's key, by the way, to have some like sound, of course, when you're doing this. So eggs are sizzling. Now the cool thing about our pans too, Mrs. Jones, is that you can actually use metal utensils. Because the cool thing is if you ever scratch our pans, it's just cosmetic. So you kind of fast forward. Let's see if I do. Right. Right, so the cool thing is, again, it's nice if you ever scratch the pan, Mrs. Jones, again, it's just cosmetic. You can use metal utensils. Now, the cool thing, Mrs. Jones, have you guys ever seen the as seen on TV ads where, like, the eggs literally just float out of the pan? They're like, oh, yeah. So the cool thing is you can do the same thing with our pans. Floating on the pan, da-da-da-da-da, falls right out, okay? Now, here's what I do also. Again, this is the next line, is basically to use and set the right expectations. Now, Mrs. Jones, if you've ever made an egg, if you're human like me and you've ever accidentally like had a couple of eggs that just kind of stay in the pan after the fact that you're done making your food.
So when you plate your omelet.
So if you ever have a couple of things that are left at the bottom, the cool thing is you can just bring it directly over to the sink and you can scrape, scrape, scrape. And the crazy thing about it, Mrs. Jones, because of the quality of our pans, it's not going to warp the pan. It's incredible. Now, if you ever burn something, it happens. The great thing is, as I said earlier, is that they're a breeze to clean. So check this customer out. I believe this is from you, Josh. So I say, yeah, a buddy of mine, he went over to a customer's house. He walked into that. This customer didn't know they need to preheat the pans, is what I say. So again, it's an emphasis on preheating the pans. But the cool thing is he brought over some barkeeper's friend and some steel wool. Zoom in, and it's like a brand new pan. They're like, oh. Right? Now, most of the time, Mrs. Jones, most of the pans that look like this, you'd have to toss them, right? The cool thing about our pans is that you'll always be able to clean it no matter what. So I kind of joke, Mrs. Jones, but if you burn it, don't return it. Ha, 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 ha. Okay, so to give you a quick example of how the waterless benefits actually works with the vegetables, my buddy Jason down in Arizona put together a video. He prepares a 3-course meal for 2 people in just 18 minutes. Now, we're not going to watch this whole thing, but just to give you a couple of highlights. Now, I'm not going to go through this, guys, because you guys all know how to talk about the Jason Jeffrey video. I'm not going to go through the whole video, but I'm just going to kind of read what I talk about. So again, notice how he preheats the pan just like we did with the eggs. Now, while cooking the meat, you actually don't need oil or butter for the meat, and it won't stick. So we've nicknamed this, the recipe, the 3-3-6-6 recipe. So for 3 minutes, we're going to sear the chicken on one side. Then he does his little test where he takes some carrot and peels it into the water. Of course, you're fast forwarding through the video. Now you're going to notice that he just puts a few peels in there, and after about 5 seconds, so the once water that was clear is now murky orange. Now imagine what's happening to our vegetables when you're boiling or steaming them for 8 to 15 minutes at a time, right? No wonder we add so much salt and pepper to our foods, right? So now he's going to flip the chicken. Notice how he gets kind of stuck just a tad, right? So I do that because, again, with Jason's video, the second chicken breast kind of gets stuck just a little bit. So I jump on it. So I'm like, yeah, so notice how it gets stuck just a little bit. All you need to do is just wiggle it up a little bit, and it'll pop right out. Right? Now, normally, here's the crazy part. He's going to put cinnamon on top of these apples. So he's going to put the carrots in. He's going to add the apples. And the crazy thing, again, he's going to put cinnamon on top of the apples. Now, normally, this whole meal would taste awful because everything would taste like cinnamon. But because we're cooking in waterless, we aren't adding water for our food to cook in. It's just cooking in its natural juices. So he's going to pop the lid on, keeping the heat on medium heat for 6 more minutes. Keep in mind, we're only at 12 minutes total, Mrs. Jones, right here. And the last 6 minutes, he's going to turn it down to low for a full 18 minutes. Okay. So after about 11, 12 minutes, he's going to pop the lid off. The apples are nice and cooked, or nice and baked, excuse me. The carrots are nice and cooked. The chicken's juicy, cooked all the way through, isn't dry. Now, what I want you to notice is that when he plates the food, look at how many natural juices have pooled at the bottom. So what most of my customers and I do is we just pour it right over the plated food as a gravy, so you get all the health benefits. Now, I said this before, the pans are dishwasher safe, but what's nice about most of my customers do once they plated their food, they just bring it right over to the sink, rinse it out, again, doesn't warp. And now this is like my favorite part because I hate doing dishes. It takes like 12 seconds to clean the pan, and it literally looks like a brand new pan. And you show Jason cleaning the pan. Now I'll show you our sets and kind of what they comes in real quick. And then you show them the sets. Okay, the last thing I'm going to say, because I'm on my 1 minute, so if we have questions and answers, I don't know what you want to do, Kelly. But basically what you're going to do there is you're going to show them the pans. Keep it going. All right. So you're going to show them the sets. And again, I think I mentioned this. We had a little cookware mastermind group that I think I mentioned, and Josh, you added onto this as well. But the importance of showing a customer the sets before you talk about price comparison, I can't even tell you how long it took me to have this epiphany. Okay, we do the same thing now with knife sets, right? We talk about the sets first before we even talk about price comparison. And here's the reason why we do that. The reason why we talk about the sets first, specifically handing them a stock pot, specifically handing them a wok, specifically handing them a griddle. The reason why is all of a sudden it creates want. It creates desire for that pan. Just like how we show an ultimate, guys, we show a cleaver, we show a salmon knife, we show a boning knife, and we show a vegetable knife. The reason we show those is because the customer now, they want that. They want that because they're like, that's so cool, I want that. So now showing a customer a $4,900 retail set that sells for $4,200, that's not about like, oh, I could never spend $4,200 on pans. Are you kidding me? I don't even know what comes in that. Now it's like, wait, so the stock pot comes in that? Huh. Now it's all of a sudden their mind is churning in, I don't want pans, or I would never spend this much money on pans. All of a sudden now it's, how can I afford this? Because I want that pan. I want those 3 or those 5 or whatever the selling points is behind those pans, right? So again, the importance of showing the sets, before you show the price comparison, of course, guys, have the Salad Master one. I have a Lustercraft one. I've got a Kitchen Craft one as well for $7,000, $6,300. The Salad Master, biggest set they sell. I don't compare it to ours because we don't sell that many pans. I compare it to their Ultimate set, which is $6,250. So I compare it to that to give them kind of a general. I'm not saying, oh yeah, it's 10. I mean, I always say you can spend up to $10,000 on Salad Master pans, which kind of sounds crazy, but again, they're going to last you forever. The biggest selling points, right, between Cutco and our stuff, I don't spend a lot of time on it, guys. I always kind of joke, Mrs. Jones, that our pans, the biggest difference is we literally just don't have bells and whistles. Like, we literally just don't have bells and whistles on our pans. That's literally the only difference. They're like, oh, okay, cool. So the biggest difference, though, Mrs. Jones, is that with our stuff, unlike with Kitchen Craft, Salad Master, and Lustercraft, where it's guaranteed for the owner, ours is guaranteed forever. So if your kid's using this in 70 years and they bust the handle, just send it in. They'll send you a new one, right? So if it's a Cutco owner, by the way, guys, they're familiar with the guarantee. It's important to, again, bring up the guarantee while you're talking about the price comparison, right? That's the biggest thing. If they're not familiar with Cutco at all, right, that's something, again, you want to definitely harp on to say, hey, they're guaranteed forever. So this isn't just a pan set that you're going to use for you. And you'd be surprised how many people that I've sold cookware sets to that are 60 plus, that have maybe 20 to 30 years, maybe, if they're lucky, to use these pans, right? But again, it's interesting the different types of customer that you run into. But again, selling them on saying, hey, even though you might not use these necessarily for the rest of the next 75 years, whoever gets them after you is going to have the same benefits of the guarantee, right? So then when you're talking about, again, just the different price comparisons, again, just emphasizing the 5-pay. And then again, just like walking them through the differences in the sets, right? If you guys don't have a 9-inch utility pan and a 12-inch fry pan, it's difficult to sell a person on why they'd want to accomplish that over a dedicated set. So having a 12-inch fry pan, guys, again, remember that if you were to buy a family set of cookware, which is like 28, 24, I think, in our book, with the kitchen tools, versus if they were to buy a dedicated set, which is like $21.59. I would say if you were to buy, Mrs. Jones, like the extra fry pan and the utility pan, just those two alone, not even the extra saucepan, you get to $2,800, right? So a lot of people, they really see the benefit. If you just say, hey, Mrs. Jones, if you were to just buy the fry pan, your price goes from $21.59 all the way almost up to $2,500. So if you can budget that extra $125 a month, right, it's definitely worth it to get the family set. What I always say with the family set, guys, is basically what the idea is that this would allow you to go home today and replace every pan that you have in your drawer and be good to go for the rest of your life, right? The stock pot, the wok, and the griddle are absolutely fantastic, especially if you guys ever do any type of bigger pasta sauces or bigger soups or bigger chilies, especially around the holidays and especially in the wintertime. Again, those 2 pans are unbelievable. And again, the griddle, if you guys haven't used it, cooking pancakes with it, French toast and grilled cheese, it's really, really great. So that's kind of what I had. Let's see if I have any other couple notes really quick here. But yeah, besides that, again, like the importance of just literally, guys, making an egg in your pans. I think that was the biggest catalyst for me selling more cookware last year. So I made an egg last year in May, right after I bought basically the rest of the set. And as silly as that sounds, literally showing a customer not hot enough pan, a hot enough pan, putting butter on it, flipping it without anything burning and sticking on the other side of it. They're like, huh. The conviction that you have, and also the conviction of not ever having returns. Like, I don't ever plan on having a cookware return because people don't understand how to use it. That doesn't even cross my mind anymore, right? That's not even a thing that even goes through my wavelength of thought process. And then the last thing that I would say is this approach, I spent a lot of time typing it out, but I spent more time with Seth and others trying to figure out how to say certain things and why to say it. I think that the biggest things that I didn't have when I first started selling cookware is I didn't ask them enough questions. So like asking the question of what kind of pans do they have and how do they like it, I actually transferred that from what Ray talked about. Ray Reed talked about this last year when he talks about knives. And I realized how much of an impact that had on my customers' like experience, because they're like, oh, I've got Farbrower knives. Oh, cool, awesome. Well, how do you like them? And they'll say, they're shit. They're terrible. I hate them. So they're vocalizing something that they hate. So now what are you going to do? You're going to show them something that they're going to absolutely love, right? So all of a sudden they're just this whole, again, concept of opening up their ears to being like, oh, okay, I do have a need here. Obviously, I'm coming up here for a reason. I hate my pans, or the pans I have are good, but they're kind of starting to wear out. Why would I want to upgrade or update to these? Right? The question of asking people like, hey, have you ever asked yourself why you boil or steam your foods before? You guys, the first time you guys asked that at the booth, the reactions that customers have, it literally looks like they're dumbfounded. They're like, they have nothing to say, by the way. They literally can't say anything. They're like, I don't actually know that. Because again, they've just been doing that for the last 30 years of their life, just because that's how their parents taught them how to cook. You got to boil your broccoli. You got to do all that stuff. You'd be surprised how many people are like, oh, and they've never thought about the fact of like, oh, where does all the good stuff go, right? Because vegetables and fruits, they're very water soluble, right? So again, a lot of the stuff, when you put them in water, all the good stuff dissipates into the water, right? And again, like I put that line in there, which is like, you're probably like most people, where I kind of put them in the boat, which is like, you probably, when you buy your fruits and vegetables, like to get the healthy parts out of it. You buy them for a reason, right? And they're like, well, yeah, obviously, right? I'm not like, unlike most people where I just buy really expensive healthy food just to get rid of all the good stuff. You're touching on pain points throughout the entire thing, right? You're touching on, again, things that they've never thought about, right? But you're also talking about a solution to that, which is right in front of them, which is our cookware. So that's what I have. If you guys have any questions, I got time. So unless you guys, again, that took a little bit longer than 7 minutes longer. So I apologize for that, Kelly. But if there's any other things you guys have questions on, I'm here for it.